20 Stoic lessons to avoid being manipulated. Marcus Aurelius. Take a moment to answer these two key questions. How can I be happy? How can I lead a good and worthwhile life? Were your answers to these two questions very different? Many people contrast being happy, which they equate with pleasure, with leading a meaningful life, which they assume means helping others and sacrificing one's own happiness. The Stoics challenge this way of thinking. They believe that the paths to happiness and to a good life are identical. This is very good news indeed. You can be happy without guilt or a lack of meaning. So how, according to the Stoics, can you do this? In this video, you'll discover the answer. 1. You are not a sheep. Do nothing like a sheep. What then do we do as? What then do we do as sheep? When we act gluttonously, lewdly, rashly, filthily, inconsiderately. What have we lost? The rational faculty. Epictetus, Discourses 2.9. Pleasure and the absence of pain might well be a fitting goal for a sheep, but not for a human. We're a bit more complicated. What is good for a sheep isn't necessarily good for a human being. What is a fitting goal for you and me, then? To develop and use our unique gifts of rationality. In other words, to develop wisdom in the other virtues. That's what the Stoics think. Do you agree? 2. The V word. Some people don't like the word virtue. It does have old-fashioned and preachy overtones, certainly. However, forget visions of Queen Victoria not having any fun. The virtues are simply qualities that help us live both good and happy lives. How so? The Greek word for virtue, erit, means excellence. So, by becoming virtuous you become an excellent human being. Or, as modern Stoic Larry Becker, 2017, puts it, you become a virtuoso at living. So next time someone asks you why you are reading a book on Stoicism, just tell them you want to lead a better and happier life. Or, if you feel daring, tell them you're training to become a virtuoso at living. 3. Character strengths. Contemporary psychologists have begun to take a strong interest in measuring the virtues. The best known measure is the values in action, via classification of character strengths. This lists 24 character strengths grouped into 6 virtues. Take the VIA survey today, it's free. Link in description. What are your top character strengths? How can you use them more today? 4. Extend the use of your top virtue today. The path to true happiness is to develop and use all the virtues. Many people find it easiest, though, to start with their top virtue, the one they score highest on, because it's the quality that is already well developed. Here are some examples of how people have extended their use of their top virtue. Lucy scored highest on courage. She already speaks up at work but has shielded from confronting a teenage child about tidying their room. She resolves to do that as her Stoic challenge today. Miranda's top virtue is justice. Though she is usually very fair and kind, she has been holding a grudge over criticism a colleague made at work. Perhaps, on reflection, the colleague had a point. She decides to forgive and forget, lightening her emotional load and ultimately freeing herself of irrational and crippling feelings that serve no one. Bob's top virtue is wisdom. He usually reads one entry from this book each day, so today he decides to read 2 entries instead. Yes, we know there are lots of other ways of developing ways of wisdom besides reading this book. How can you use your top virtue in an extra way today? 5. The unity of the virtues. You clearly need wisdom to have the other virtues, because you need good judgment to tell the difference between, for example, courage and rashness, or self-control and unhelpful self-denial. But can you be wise without being courageous? Can you be courageous without being just? No, answer the Stoics. Consider Ethan and Raj, a married couple. Raj is thinking about quitting his job. He thinks of this in terms of his needing to be courageous. I need the courage to quit my job, he tells his friends. But how can he know whether this is true courage unless he also possesses justice, the knowledge of whether quitting would be fair to Ethan? Stoics call this idea the unity of the virtues. In practice, it means that you shouldn't try to cultivate just one virtue. You need all of them. Today, Look out for opportunities to practice each of the four main, or cardinal, virtues: wisdom, courage, justice and self-control. 6. A 5-minute meditation to start your day. Of course, you'll have a strong desire to master each virtue. However, this full speed ahead approach is much like trying to carry all the grocery bags into the house in one trip, putting unnecessary strain on yourself and becoming so overwhelmed that you may just drop everything. Longevity in the application of each virtue takes practice. Here is one of my favorite ways to develop a specific virtue. At the start of the day, write down the name of one virtue that you want to work on today. Sam writes down courage. Next, close your eyes and identify various opportunities you might have to use that virtue today. Sam runs through his day and picks several likely times when he can show courage, such as giving difficult but constructive feedback to a colleague. Open your eyes and jot down the opportunities you have thought of. Read it through twice. Sam writes down the situations when courage is likely to be handy. He reads his list so he is more likely to remember to use courage when he needs it later in the day. What virtue do you want to work on today? 7. An evening review. Another good way to develop a specific virtue is to spend 5 minutes at the end of the day reviewing it. It's great to combine this with the morning meditation on the same virtue. Here Sam is reviewing how well he did on his courage challenge. What went well? I gave the constructive feedback, and there was no problem. I also went to the gym, even though I feel a bit self-conscious there. What I could do better? I guess I could have spent longer on some exercises at the gym. I can do that tomorrow. What I omitted to do? I've only just thought about this now. I fell out with my brother around Christmas time, and it's time to patch things up. That will take courage. It's important though, so I will send a text right now. This evening, spend 5 minutes reviewing how you got on with a specific virtue. What went well? What I could do better? What I omitted to do? 8. Does virtue pay? Stoics think that you shouldn't be virtuous for the wrong reason. Virtue, they believe, is its own reward. Nevertheless, you may be interested to learn that recent research strongly suggests that virtue does pay. Here are some of the most interesting findings. Steger, Kashtan and Oishi, 2008, found that doing things in line with virtue, such as expressing gratitude, volunteering and persevering in a valued goal even in the face of obstacles, was associated with higher well-being than things that were not. Casual sex, buying things for yourself and getting drunk. Park, Peterson and Seligman, 2004, found that all the 24 via character strengths were associated with life satisfaction. Curiosity, love, hope, zest and gratitude showed the strongest link. Emmons, 2003, found that values associated with work, intimacy, spirituality and transcendence, going beyond your own self-interest, had a positive relationship with well-being and purpose, while other values connected with power, money, status and attractiveness did not. So, whether you think of virtue as being its own reward, or whether you're interested in the consequences of being virtuous, the moral is clear. Follow virtue. 9. Is feeling good all there is to the good life? Imagine you must make this choice, right now. You can continue your current life, or you can choose to plug permanently into a virtual reality machine. If you choose to be plugged in, you won't know it's not reality. It's absolutely guaranteed that while plugged into the machine you will feel great for the rest of your life. There's a catch, though. A week or two in this virtual reality pleasure machine isn't an option. You have a stark choice: stay in the real world or plug into the pleasure machine until you die. Would you plug in? Most people answer no. They give reasons such as, my experiences would be fake. My life would be a waste. I wouldn't grow as a person. I wouldn't really be there for the people I care about. But you sure would feel good. Does this mean that there is more to true happiness than just feeling good? 10. Not such a merry-go-round. Pleasure dies at the very moment when it charms us most. It soon cloys and wearies us, and fades away as soon as its first impulse is over. Seneca, on the Happy Life 7.3. I went to collect my shiny new car. How happy I felt. I imagined the admiring looks I would get from friends and neighbors. A few weeks later, and the novelty had worn off, just like the gloss on the bonnet. Friends and neighbors had been surprisingly uninterested in my new purchase. Very soon, my happiness returned to its previous level, and that, according to the Stoics, is one of the problems with pursuing a life of pleasure. We just go round in a circle, like a hamster on a wheel. Hunger, pursuit, fleeting pleasure, more hunger, more pursuit. These days psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. But Seneca and the Stoics knew about the futility of the pursuit of pleasure a long time ago. Today, notice how fleeting your pleasures are. 11. The joy of Stoicism. While they are opposed to the pursuit of unethical pleasures, Stoics are no killjoys. In fact, joy is one of the 3 encouraged Stoic emotions. What's more, in our research we've found a very strong link between Stoicism and positive emotions such as contentment and optimism. One of the most striking findings in 10 years of research is that zest turns out to be the character strength most associated with Stoicism and most enhanced by the practice of it. What's zest? It's what the A.A. Milne character Tigger epitomizes, that feeling you get when you wake up full of beans and looking forward to the day ahead. How is it that Stoics are so joyful and full of zest? Since you're not trying to control the uncontrollable, you don't set yourself up for disappointments that could turn you into an a-hole. What's more, when you do the right thing, you get positive, enduring and zestful feelings, rather than the spikes you get from sensory pleasure. That's the joy of Stoicism. 12. Notice your positive qualities. Right now, spend a few minutes recalling a time in the last 24 hours when you have used a virtue, in however small a way. Identify which virtue or virtues you used. Susie recalls how she listened considerately to her housemate's romantic problems. Kindness and justice. Harry remembers how he went for a run, even though he didn't feel like doing so. Courage. Ray thinks about how he didn't buy so much alcohol when he went shopping. Moderation. How does recalling your own use of a virtue make you feel? 13. No shortcut to happiness. Have you ever seen the movie Goodfellas? At first, the gangsters in the film seem to have found a shortcut to happiness. They get the girls, drive fast cars, and never have to wait in line. Yet, by the end of the film, they all wound up with broken relationships, in jail, or dead. It's not so hard to see that their happiness isn't likely to last. If, spoiler alert, you cheat, shoot people who irritate you, double-cross and rob banks, then at some point your misbehavior is quite likely to catch up with you. It's a further step to understanding that the gangsters suffer because they lack the very qualities advocated by the Stoic virtues. The good fellas lack self-control, justice, and a moral sense. It's because of this that their happiness is not sustainable. But here's a thought. Could it be that the gangsters are just an exaggerated version of all of us? Don't we all do things that seem to benefit us in the short term but harm us when we look at the big picture? Like when we eat that unhealthy cake or gossip about a friend? What shortcuts to happiness do you attempt? 14. Mushrooms, toadstools and the dichotomy of value. I was out walking the other day in a forest with lots of mushrooms and toadstools, and it got me thinking about Stoicism. I can hear your complaint straight away. It doesn't take much to get you thinking about Stoicism. What have fungi got to do with Stoicism? Bear with me. Would you be happy if next time you went to the supermarket, they had started labeling mushrooms as fungi? I'd be a bit worried that it might be a toadstool and not a mushroom. Exactly. It would put you in a lot of jeopardy. And your point? Well, the Stoics think that this is how it stands with all the usual things we think of as being good, not just fungi. For example, money is good for you if you spend it on education or healthy food, bad if you spend it on unhealthy food or drugs. That's true, so what should we do? We need to withhold judgment about whether things like money are really good. The only things we can label as unconditionally good are the qualities that enable us to tell the difference. And I guess these would be none other than the virtues? Exactly. My modern Stoic colleague Chris Gill refers to this as the dichotomy of value. Just as there is a dichotomy in the world of fungi, between edible mushrooms and poisonous toadstools, so there is with everything. So, the virtues are unconditionally good and everything else is to be treated with caution. Precisely. So the most important thing is for us to develop these qualities, the virtues. What toxic outcomes can the dichotomy of value help you avoid today? 15. Freya's frustrations. Freya has learned that her colleague Marie has just got the promotion that she expected for herself. Her initial response is understandable but, frankly, not too stoic. It's not fair. Life sucks. Maybe I should quit. And I'm definitely not going out for drinks with Marie and the gang tomorrow. How could the dichotomy of value, things like money and status may be of some value, but the virtues are of greater value, help her deal with the situation? Jot down your answer before you proceed. 16. Freya uses the dichotomy of value. This is how Freya uses the dichotomy of value to respond well to being passed over for promotion. Extra money and recognition are valuable, but would they really make me happy? I have enough money already, to be honest. Status is nice, but do I want to be defined by what other people think of me? A little voice says, but what about fairness? This just isn't fair. How do I know it isn't fair? I don't really know how well suited Marie is to this role. She may be a better option. But I do want to advance my career and understand why I was passed over. So, what virtues do I need here? All of them: self-control, courage, justice and wisdom. Self-control, to control myself so I don't just lash out and act on impulse. Courage, to have a chat with my boss about why I didn't get the promotion and what I need to do to get it next time. Justice, it's not Marie's fault that she got promoted. I can try to be happy for her. Gosh, this is actually an opportunity for me to rise above my instinctive reaction and be a better version of myself. Wisdom, it's much wiser to see whether I can progress my career in this company than to quit on impulse just because I feel robbed. It's also wisdom that helps me understand the dichotomy of value and to realize which virtues to apply. Can you use Freya's example to become a better version of yourself? 17. Preferred indifference. At some point in your Stoic journey, you are bound to come across the phrase preferred indifference. It's another name for external goods, like status, money and pleasure, though it's a confusing phrase. How can you be indifferent to something if you prefer it? And should you be indifferent to things like the health and the well-being of your loved ones? In fact, Stoics are not indifferent to the indifference. There are some things that we naturally pursue, and as long as we obtain them in a virtuous way, that's fine. It's natural to prefer health to ill health and having money to living in poverty. External goods are called indifferent not because we should be indifferent to them, but because they do not make the difference between true happiness and misery, between a good life and a bad life. The virtues are the only sure path to true happiness, the only things that are unconditionally good. 18. Happiness is within your grasp. To paraphrase Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 6.51, there are 3 types of people. People who think happiness is all about praise, people who think it's all about pleasure, and people who think it's all about their own actions. Marcus believes that it is this last group of people who are wisest. If you depend on other people's approval or make feeling good your main value, then happiness is outside your control. If, on the other hand, you follow the wise and make your own virtuous actions your main goal in life, happiness is very much within your grasp. Why? Because you can always, like the Stoic archer, C12, try to do the right thing. And that's enough. 19. Can you think of anything better? In his Meditations 3.6, Marcus Aurelius poses this challenge. If you can find anything in human life better than justice, truthfulness, self-control, and courage, turn to it with all your heart and enjoy the supreme good that you have found. Meditations 3.6. Can you think of anything better than the virtues as the path towards true happiness? Or do you find yourself in agreement with the last good emperor? 20. Make yourself beautiful. See what Socrates says to Alcibiades, most beautiful and charming of men. Strive then to attain beauty. What does he say to him? Does he say, arrange your hair and smooth your legs? God forbid. But set your will in order, rid it of bad judgments. Epictetus, Discourses 3.1. When Socrates told Alcibiades to make himself beautiful, he wasn't recommending a trip to the salon. He was talking about inner beauty. Time is unkind to the flesh no matter how many products we invest in. Better to invest in the internal, the impression you leave this world, for that is eternal.